Could Triple H cancel the Money in the Bank concept? We'll talk about it. Plus, TNA title matches have been added to Against All Odds. And we have an update on some planned SmackDown changes. It's all in the Cultaholic Wrestling news right now. You know, it's so hard to imagine Money in the Bank not being part of our annual schedule with WWE. But if Paul Levesque has his way, it won't be.
Perhaps not. WrestleVotes with an interesting note on WrestleVotes Radio saying that Triple H doesn't like Money in the Bank. So they were talking about the upcoming Money in the Bank premium live event. And they said, I've been told Triple H is not a fan of the Money in the Bank prop as a whole. In a follow-up to this, Sean Ross sat Fightful pointing out that during his active WWE career, Triple H never held the Money in the Bank briefcase, never competed for it, was never cashed in on, suggesting that he maybe intentionally avoided it, adding some weight to that WrestleVotes report. Now he's the man in charge. Could he scrap it? I think it's a difficult thing to scrap because WWE, over the last 10 or so years, whatever it is, have tried to brand Money in the Bank as one of the now big five. It goes Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and they wanted Money in the Bank to be a part of that big family of the main pay-per-views. So I think it's difficult to get rid of that. But I actually sort of understand his dislike or at least concern for it because it's a tricky thing to book when you know you've got now two Money in the Bank briefcase holders every year. I think it works better doing it as and when needed at WrestleMania.
So have it as a match rather than a pay-per-view?
I think so as well. I don't see it getting scrapped personally because it's a popular show and it's a profitable show for them. It's one that people get really hyped for. But if you've got, for example, a world champion or even two world champions at the same time that you want to keep world champ for a while, you've just got this sort of annoying thing where somebody's got to have the briefcase and either they've got to hold it for ages and not really do anything with it, or they've got to cash in unsuccessfully, which doesn't necessarily make people look good. And I think, like, let's say they want to make Jacob Fatu a world champion. One way to get there is via Money in the Bank. So they could put him in the Money in the Bank match and have him win Money in the Bank. But maybe they want him to have, they don't want his first world title win to be cash-in assisted. So that means you've got to give it to somebody else who maybe you don't want as a world champion, who then has to fail. That doesn't hurt them. Do you know what I mean? I think it sort of books them into a corner sometimes.
It's a bit like the issue that we had with Hell in a Cell when it became like an annual pay-per-view. All of a sudden you had these storylines that didn't necessarily need or to have the Hell in a Cell as part of that story. It now had to because it went through September. So therefore a lot of matches that didn't really deserve a Hell in a Cell match got a Hell in a Cell match. So with Money in the Bank being like a feature calendar part of the year, you kind of have to have that in there regardless of where everybody is in the hierarchy. With your plan where you use it as and when as a match at WrestleMania, you get a lovely big multi-person ladder match at Mania, which I think WrestleMania has missed since Money in the Bank became its own pay-per-view because they've always tried to shoehorn one in with the IC title or the tag titles, or on NXT Stand and Deliver this year there was a big multi-person one as well, but it was they've always tried to somehow shoehorn them in. Yeah. Haven't they? Was there a multi-person ladder match? Yes, there was, wasn't it, for the North American Women's Championship?
Yeah, it was on SmackDown as well, didn't they? The tag titles, which should have been at WrestleMania because it was an absolute banger.
It was an absolute banger.
I really hope they do it back at WrestleMania because I agree that WrestleMania is sort of missing something by not having Money in the Bank there. But yeah, just as and when to me, as and when, because it gets more difficult every year. Like, props to the wrestlers, right? Who can make those ladder matches still feel really, really special and at TLC, but it gets harder and harder every year because how inventive can you be with a few ladders? They do an amazing job, but maybe this is a case of less is more.
Could very well be. And you could also tell by Triple H's booking, sort of maybe you can kind of get a sense of that disinterest in the briefcase because the men's one this year was cashed in on the same night.
Yeah.
The previous years, the women's one has been cashed in on the same night.
Practically all the time. The women's, like, it's really, is it just, it's Carmella, who held it for absolutely ages. I think she's the longest Money in the Bank holder ever. Yeah. Pretty much every other one was like, it's the same night, next night.
Bliss was on the same night. Liv Morgan was on the same night.
Nikki Cross next night,
Nikki Cross the following night. Yeah, so he's been quick to kind of get them moved along. But certainly something that we're going to keep an eye on. WrestleVotes Radio also talking about the celebrity appearance on Raw of Tom Segura. He was in the crowd loving an episode of Raw, which he wasn't a massive fan of in a previous interview. WrestleVotes Radio saying, we're told several in the company were unhappy with the appearance of comedian Tom Segura this past Monday's Raw, while the few we talked to understood it was a Netflix call to have him on the show, and from all accounts he was respectable while backstage. Many within the company didn't appreciate the fact that someone who was on record with those negative ideas and feelings towards pro wrestling couldn't just walk right in and shake hands. He made a bunch of disparaging comments about wrestling being fake and fixed, and made some very disparaging comments about the people who watch wrestling and like wrestling. And then there he was on Monday Night Raw having a lovely old time watching the wrestling. Yeah.
What do you expect?
It's
corporate bollocks, isn't it?
Of course
He's
it
there to
is.
promote whatever he's promoting. I don't know who the guy is. I remember the comments that he made, and I thought they were just unpleasant and a little bit mean-spirited, and then to turn up, it's all fake, isn't it?
It's
not wrestling.
The wrestling's
Showbiz.
very real.
Wrestling's real. Tom Segura's fake. Bellend, move on.
So from somebody getting a bit of a bad vibe backstage to some lovely vibes backstage for a TNA guy in NXT.
Yeah, this was really nice to hear. Obviously, Mike Santana having a match this week on NXT, and PW Insider reporting, we're told Mike Santana received high marks from those within WWE after his appearances this week. I mean, I've been a fan for an awful long time. Santana and Ortiz, loved them together, proud and powerful. I'll always be completely perplexed as to why AEW never put the straps on them. I can't believe that wasn't a thing during their time there. And I think they were great together. And I think his singles run has been good. And the one thing that I think he was perhaps missing a little bit of was just... It wasn't character. He was perhaps lacking in, I don't want to say charisma. He was lacking a little bit of aura. And I think since the singles run started, he's grown and grown. He's always been so solid in the ring. And I think he's really good on the stick as well. But I think he's just gotten better and better over the last few years where he's been doing things solo. And it wouldn't at all surprise me if WWE picked him up.
It was funny you mentioned the stick there, because when me and Jack talked about him on Wednesday, and Jack made the comment, and I agreed with him being very much like Eddie Kingston on the mic. Many people in the comments went, no, he's just from New York. That's just, that's not Kingston-esque. He's just from New York, which I totally get. But they love him. They're big fans of their work. And this Tuesday, he's challenging Tricky Willie for the TNA World Championship on NXT. This is the wildest of times that we live in. Beyond there, as revealed on TNA Impact last night, it's going to be Elijah that gets the next crack at the TNA World title, looking like Trick versus Elijah Against All Odds. What a time, eh?
Elias challenging for the NXT title after
TNA
leaving the company.
title.
Sorry, for the TNA title.
I was as baffled as you were.
Yeah, it's just a weird. I can't wait to see that match graphic pop up, because everything feels so surreal, doesn't it? I'm really excited, by the way, for Trick versus Santana. I think that's going to be an absolute banger. I thought Santana was fantastic this week, and I fully expect that one to top it.
That's good. Yeah, they are gonna have a lot of fun in that one. Also confirmed for Against All Odds, Masha Slamovich defending the Knockouts World title against Lei Ying Lee. The Nemeths are my guests on the news podcast this week. I had a lovely chat with Nick and Ryan Nemeth. You can check that out right now. Ahead of that, they are going to be defending their World Tag Team titles against the Rascals and the former World Champion Joe Hendry facing off against Frankie Kazarian. That's how Against All Odds shapes up next weekend. How Joe bounces back from losing the title, I'll be intrigued to see.
I think it should be fine, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna be A-okay. I'm still very glad that it happened, because to me, all of this TNA stuff that we're talking about now is just a little bit more interesting because of what happened this past weekend.
It's a little bit spicier. SmackDown news to end on. Some changes for SmackDown were due from tonight. That doesn't look like that's happening now.
No, it doesn't look like we're getting rid of 3-hour-long episodes of SmackDown anytime soon, according to a report from WrestleVotes, despite Triple H saying recently in an interview that it was just temporary. They're saying that SmackDown will be 3 hours long for the foreseeable future. USA, NBC Universal being very satisfied with the performance in the third hour of SmackDown, and despite those plans for tonight's episode to be 3 hours, it's not going to be changing moving forward, which I'm a little bit disappointed by, because I really do think that for weekly TV, 2 hours is the sweet spot. And I think SmackDown has taken a noticeable decline in quality since it's gone to 3 hours. It feels like some weeks they're struggling to fill those 3 hours, and it's not as fast paced. I mean, that's the length of a WWE pay-per-view now. You look at a B-show WWE pay-per-view, and they go about 3 hours if you don't include the pre-show. You get 5 matches there, and then SmackDown. It can drag sometimes. I still enjoy the show and everything. I just wish it was 2 hours.
Time is a concept of human perception because there's 3 hours, which is like Raw, maybe an NXT PLE, and then there's 3 hours, which is any episode of SmackDown, because there's about 1 million breaks, and they go to breaks during everybody's entrance and twice during a match, and it just feels so long in the tooth.
Yeah,
I was really hoping we'd see less of that.
I'm glad that on Netflix we can see the stuff that's happening during the commercial break, but let's be honest, it's never that exciting, isn't it? It's an entrance or it's a little interview, which is just pretty throwaway. At least there's something to watch. You don't have to watch it all, but it can drag sometimes.
Less wrestling. That's what we want.
We're such hypocrites. I was whinging about. 3 hours is too long for a weekly show. That's been my opinion for the longest time. I didn't like it when Raw was 3 hours. I prefer a 2-hour show. Sue me.
Hey, I tell you what, we watched a 90-minute episode of SmackDown, Matthew, Greg, and I, and we talk about it on the Cultaholic Classic SmackDown review tomorrow. It's the episode that debuts Team Angle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Really fun episode of SmackDown. Watch it along with us on the Patreon as well. If you're a Patreon, you get the video version of those. Patreon.com/Cultaholic. And for the very latest wrestling news at any time, you can check out Cultaholic.com. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.